All right, Reid. So now we're here for our first weekly update of our COVID-19. I don't know if you want to say like research or what do you want to call it?
Well, I just think industry reporting or marketing reports.
Okay, cool. So without further ado, let's quickly jump into some of the slides, and we'll do our best to make this sound okay over audio as well, meaning not just if you don't have the availability to look at the slides. Okay, so this is a follow-up industry reporting, as Reid was saying, from our 323 webinar. So we committed to doing weekly updates, which the team was super thrilled about. Very full data every week. But we're also going to do a monthly webinar. So you'll get a couple of these in between the monthly webinars, and we'll let you all know when the next webinar is coming out, which will be more full-featured than what you're getting in this update. So let's quickly get into the industry impact of what we saw last time versus this time. So this first slide, Reid, at first, I was just telling you, I got super excited when I saw this because I thought it meant we were leasing more units now than before. And then either you corrected me or I corrected myself and realized, oh no, this is this is available units. So available units across the United States seems to be spiking.
Yeah, which isn't entirely a surprise probably for anybody, but what I know people will be curious to see is where is that availability? Based on classes, like is it more on the luxury end? Is it more on? I mean, is it across the board? Specific regions, et cetera, which we'll get a little bit at that. But that when I look at this graph, it is a little startling, but then I get really curious. It's like inside of that line, like what's really driving the availability.
Right. And right now it looks like it's back to December levels as far as from how back of a history we have as far as what it hit this week.
Yep. But pretty significant trajectory if you look at, the last week, which is a little unsettling.
Yeah. So this next one, it gets into absorption. So this is absorption rate by the top 20 markets. And then we have Seattle and New York pulled out. And so last on the webinar last week, we were saying, hey, things look kind of the same. There's not a lot to take from this, but this week it looks like there's definitely a trend starting to hit where it makes sense. The available units are going up, and it's not like a bunch of new properties are opening in the last week. And now we're seeing less absorption than prior to COVID.
Yeah, the biggest call out there is New York. Not a surprise to anybody, being that it's the epicenter of COVID-19, but they had a really rough week as far as absorption. And you saw it too, I think. Well, maybe it wasn't as clear on the availability, but they're struggling.
I mean, they see a monthly cycle anyways. You can see New York sees a monthly cycle. So this seems to be the down, but the down is pretty rough. I mean, it's basically hitting the down of last February.
Yeah,
but it looks like it may uptick. So
yeah, we shall see. I think a lot of folks. Well, maybe it is more New York. See that initial like absorption boost at the beginning of the year, and then they see the downturn and kind of things smooth out. What we don't know or don't see here is how this compares to the same time last year. Like, do they see this downturn? Are these the same cycles basically that they see or that they saw in 19?
Right. All right. So this slide here is absorption rate, and this is by higher case markets of COVID versus lower case markets of COVID. And Reid, I totally missed this the first time, but you were saying that the lower case markets are well, I'll let you go into it. I don't want to F it up, but I think you were saying lowercase versus higher case.
Yeah, well, the lowercase actually are on the same trend as Washington State is, which is not a good trend. And then you see the higher cases are more or less in line with where they typically are. I mean, they had a bit of a downturn, but that is just the kind of eye opener. What surprised me a little bit is that the higher cases were actually performing better as far as absorption rate than the lower cases.
Yeah. Super interesting. Wouldn't have expected it. And then so that's quickly marketing or market impact. And now we're going to get into marketing impact. So this is where I'll say the story gets a little bit better. overall. But search volume, we added last year's search volume versus this year, so we could see what the delta was. And so what you'll see here is that the blue line of last year versus the green line of this year is that searches are down. But last week we had seen that things went down about 25%. And where I say it's slightly better news is that it's maintained a 25% down. So basically it started to flatten out as far as the amount of search volume for apartments for rent.
Yeah, the trend stabilized, and there's even a nice little uptick there in the first part of the week. So obviously, the further we go, the more interesting this becomes. But definitely like seeing that as far as the demand in the market picking back up.
And this graph crosses coronavirus searches and unemployment searches. And what I thought was interesting is coronavirus searches, it's almost like people are getting tired of it at this point. But unemployment is still on the rise, which, unfortunate, but.
Yeah, there's been just so much news press, on what's going on. So I think people are getting fatigued. I mean, we know some of our clients are getting fatigued, owners, operators, just the public at large. They're looking for other avenues, I guess, of content right now.
Yeah, what was interesting is on our Google partner call last week, Google was saying that that the data that they have that they've pulled is showing that people, as far as times of day, because you can't get coronavirus searches from Google Trends by time of day, you can only get it by day. But when we were asking them about coronavirus searches and when they're happening, they were saying it's first thing in the morning when people wake up and last thing before they go to bed. So it's like, well, yeah, it just bookends their day. But the middle of the day, there's a lot fewer searches for coronavirus or COVID-19.
Yeah, makes sense. I used to talk about digital commutes. We all have them, like what our path is, but typically, and being, with the background in newspaper, when we would track our online patterns, it was exactly what you just described. People immediately, as soon as they got up, they get on their phone, they might get on their laptop before they'd really settle into their day. Then they might do some light browsing, more responding to notifications throughout the day, but not really actively pursuing news and content. And then towards the end, as they'd wrap up their dinner, that was time for more leisure, sitting on the couch, back on their phones, back on their laptops. So doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Haven't heard you talk about your digital commute in some time. Nice throwback.
I give you chills.
Yeah. Or like indigestion.
Right. PTS.
Yeah. All right. So this campaign performance, this is cost per click over time. And what we had seen was a major spike. We had seen, I think last week we were talking about a 25% jump from prior period. And this week, the positive news is that cost per click is down. So, but not, it hasn't made up for things, meaning it's down from last week by, what does that math read, about 30 cents?
Yeah.
Or 40 cents? 40 cents.
Yeah, it's 40. Yeah, 289.
Yeah.
Which is pretty significant. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, significant percentage.
Yeah, I was just saying when I first looked at it, is this a result of some advertisers pulling back, and that could include some of the big boys, right? Like, it's hard. I mean, I guess I could follow up on this and look at SEMrush and see what it's telling us as far as CoStar and company, the ILSs, and how much of a part they may or may not have had in this trend. But it's, to me, more likely that because a lot of marketing has slowed down or paused, that you see this trend. The other thing could be that people are shifting strategy too, right? Which I would very much compliment and encourage, where you can't just take the same strategy as you did before COVID. So maybe more people are focused on some of the long tail or just some more affordable keywords.
Totally. So overall, we're still up like $1.50 no, 50 cents year over year, which is a big jump, but it's not as significant as where we thought it was skyrocketing, which is a full $1 year over year.
Right.
So normally the seasonality looks like it kicks in now, and cost per click normally goes up, but at least we're starting to come back down to earth.
Yep.
So website traffic, this is actually, I guess, more validating. So last time we had seen that there was a little bit more organic search and a little bit more paid search than prior period, and a lot more paid social engagement as far as like traffic to the website. And this time we see it's very clear everything else is kind of evened out, and instead we're just seeing a lot more paid social traffic to the website. And I guess I didn't notice this, but a good little bump to display traffic to websites up. So we had seen this last time, but basically your paid social dollars are going further now than they were going before because CPMs have dropped by 19% on social for apartments.
And
So that could
CPMs
be back.
yeah, I was just going to say CPMs are driven by activity, like how much engagement is happening on Facebook, Instagram, and not a surprise that there's a ton of activity right now on social, which we brought up last week. So I agree, just validating. And if I were a marketer and certainly one of our clients, I would definitely be trying to take advantage of that. Make sure you're shifting a little bit more dollars over to that paid social right now.
Right. So more people spending time on social networks and some of the big advertisers pulling out, and then thus it drives down the cost.
There you go.
And then this is website engagement. So again, for this, what we were doing is pulling session duration across the websites that we have access to, and then we've segmented those websites from higher COVID states and markets and lower case COVID markets, just to see how people are spending time on the website or not. And in this case, we're seeing a little bit kind of what you'd expect, but higher case markets are spent a lot lower site engagement than lowercase COVID markets. So if you're in one of those highly impacted markets, people are most likely spending a lot less time on your website.
Yeah, and obviously lots of theories here, but one on the higher cases reported having the lower average session duration could be a byproduct of just what that climate feels like right now. And I think about my sister; she's in New York, and not that she's looking for an apartment, but she's pretty overwhelmed. She's not in a good mental state right now, so I can't imagine, even if she was in the market, that she would be spending too much time there. Doesn't mean that searches and activity aren't happening, but all I'm saying is when you're in one of those really rough climates right now, it's probably not a place that you're going to spend a tremendous amount of time. So I don't know if that's right or not. It just seems like that's somewhat plausible. What is encouraging though is you see both lines moving up week over week. So that definitely is a good sign as far as the attention people are putting right now on property websites.
And you made the point before that the lowercase markets are actually it looks like they're starting to even out from pre-COVID awareness.
Right. Yep. Yep. There was a tiny spike, but I think that was too early right after the COVID. And then you start to see the trend sliding back. But now we see it bounce back up a little bit. And then if you just look across the whole graph, obviously you see that it's pretty flat with what's typical. So that's good.
And then this is, well, I'm glad to see our team's forecasting has done well here on this graph. So what this graph is showing website traffic of the lower funnel pages of websites and how much engagement those lower funnel pages are getting. So lower funnel pages being floor plan pages, availability pages, amenity pages, apply online pages, things like that. So the concept here is all the traffic that's going to a website now, current residents that are looking at how the building is handling the epidemic, or are there still leads coming through? So we went to these lower funnel pages, pulled them to look at the engagement pre-coronavirus versus post. And what we show here is that things have been trending up as far as interest on these lower funnel pages like floor plan pages and availability pages has been increasing since the beginning of the year. And it had a major spike right after COVID before March happened. But then it looked like it was tanking. And then over the last week, things have started to get back up to above, I guess, the trend line that's moving upwards, which has equaled, if I'm reading this correctly, a 5.1% upward trend from prior period. Did I get that right, Reid?
Yeah. And if you actually, and I won't ask you to go back to the last slide, but I just think it's pretty fascinating that this slide has similar trends in the last, let's just say, month and a half to the average session duration, where we saw that spike also there. And then things slow down. So my point here is that these are your engagement metrics. So they are lower funnel, but they're also where more time spent. So makes sense that we're seeing a lot of commonalities in this trend line where it's like lower funnel, but also a place that they're going to spend more time, right? Because they're going to look through amenities, they're going to look, more closely at floor plans, therefore driving up the time. And the other important part of this, and why this is such a valuable, like these metrics within GA are so valuable, is it's the least likely that you're going to have your data blurred by current residents. What current resident is really looking hard at your floor plans or looking at your availability or looking at your amenities. Yes, some of them may hit you on the contact us, but highly unlikely they're going to be looking at the location because they already live there. So I think this is, a super valuable slide, one of the cleanest that, that we have in the deck.
Cool. All right, and then we have, this is campaign performance. So what we're looking at is how is click volume trending, but also how is your click to lead ratio trending. And what we saw last week is we were super excited by how the click to lead ratio or conversion rate was improving compared to pre-COVID. So in this case, what we see is that, yes, you are getting less clicks now, which makes sense because the cost per click has gone up, as we talked about. And then over the last week, it's been up 50 cents from last year. But your conversion rate, so the people that click on your ad and then make a call, a form fill, either a call, form fill, or apply online, that is going up. And what we've seen is that there's a 15% conversion rate improvement over the last 4 weeks from before COVID.
Yep. And nice, even though click volume is down, you see it rebounding over the past week. So this is a theme, I think, through this update is we are seeing, and it's not trying to tell a good story, it's just the data telling us that there's a lot of improvement in the last week in some key areas, and that would be one of them. And that's without compromising, like David said, too much on the click to lead ratio.
Cool. So click volume down 22%, but click to lead up 15%, which ends up netting out. We showed last week a better ROI right now, which is unexpected or was unexpected. And that's what we get to actually. I sort of beat the punchline on this slide. So this slide talks through campaign performance and cost per lead. And this is week over week. We said last week cost per lead was better than it had been in the period immediately prior to coronavirus. But this week it's continued to decrease. So this week it's decreased another 8.1%. So even though we have a lot more available inventory now, people are less. There's less searches happening now. It seems again that people are starting to say like, well, I got to get back to normal. If I need to move, I need to move, and so that's driving up conversion rates. And so your overall cost per lead has decreased.
Yep. I'll try not to be a broken record, but encouraging to see things looking better this week over the last week. So the fact that the CPL has gone down and is also more in line with what we historically would expect or have expected this year is all good signs.
So marketing strategy. We kind of consolidated some of these slides so that we're not sending out such a large deck each week. But this is the funnel slide. And what we see is that the awareness campaigns from the beginning of March till now have remained about the same on their effectiveness. Your mid-funnel campaigns like paid social, geofencing, email have gone down slightly, although we have said that social, if you pull social out from Gmail, geofencing and email, that it's actually performing better. So geofencing and email start to bring down the curve a little bit. And then and then search, which a lot of people are super concerned about right now. Click-through rate has decreased from the beginning of March till now, but again, it hasn't made that big of a difference because overall your click-to-lead ratio is better. So who cares what your click-through rate is if you're still getting leads for less than before?
Yeah, totally. And it's really immaterial change, 5.8 to 5.6. But you also have to remember, like we saw, that the click volume went up. And typically when you see click volume go up significantly, you're going to see click-through rate go down. Not always like perfect reciprocation or whatever inverse. But so, yeah, I think this is all good signs, really.
And what's next? So that's the wrap up of the data slides that we're updating each week. This what's next is just going through for those that aren't aware, but we're going to do these weekly updates. So we're going to have our data science team pull this together each week just so we can keep abreast of the trends. And we'll be publishing that as both a blog and then on the YouTube channel. We're going to do monthly webinars. So our next webinar, Reid, I should have had this prepared, but
I believe
is it at the
23rd, I believe, at noon, April 23rd at noon.
Okay, great. Well, there you go. Well done. And then we'll also be covering any ongoing best practices. So right now we didn't have any additional slides because things look kind of the same conclusions that we had last week. Search is still super effective right now because people are highly engaged if they are searching for you. Paid social is more economical than it used to be. So those two channels in particular, if you're spending on them, probably want to keep spending on them. And it looks like more of the competition is falling out of the market. So even though less people are looking for apartments right now, if you hold the course and stay in the market with your marketing, as more of those folks fall out, it'll start to continue to bring down the cost per clicks, and that will help your campaigns.
Yep. And the last bullet here that obviously we highlighted and plenty of people have taken us up on since the first webinar is that you can get Fiona for free now through the end of August. And all these trends that we're sharing, I'm sure everybody's asking themselves, at least I would be, what does it look like exactly in my market or even in my sub-market? And that's the kind of data that does flow through in Fiona. So hopefully you guys take us up on that offer.
Yeah, it actually also what happens to your property, right? Because each property is, we kind of mock as a snowflake,
right?
Or jokingly, but
right.
But I will say this almost backfired on us, Reid. The offering Fiona for free, like we got too many folks coming at us.
Yeah. There's a backlog right now, but understandably so. So hopefully the platform delivers the insights that you guys are looking for. Like we said, makes it a little bit easier to operate during this time, and certainly bridge some of the communication challenges that I can't imagine people are going through right now as they're trying to navigate owners, investors, operators on how to handle the marketing. Last thing that I wanted to say is that one slide we didn't have in here that I definitely think we can reintroduce, or not reintroduce, but introduce next week, and we'll hit harder on the webinar on the 23rd is the call analytics. Anybody that works with us knows that that's something that we put a lot of focus and attention on, and some interesting things that we've gotten back related to the COVID-19 and how many people aren't incorporating that into, or how much that's actually being incorporated into calls right now. But then also just the sheer volume and quality. So just a FYI, we'll be getting at that more next week and moving forward.
Great point. Yeah, sneak peek, like when we pulled that last time, it was like 2% of calls were including coronavirus or COVID keywords,
right.
Meaning where people were mentioning it on the call, which surprised the heck out of us. People were kind of getting down the business whenever they called the leasing office.
Yep. Well, I'll leave it there. I'm excited to talk more about call volume next week.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks all. Appreciate you tuning in.
All right. Good luck, everyone. Stay safe.